Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Zero Hour. We've got a great hour coming up for you. We've got Lisa Graves from the Center for Media and Democracy, who will be talking with us about yet more evidence of corruption, this time at the governor's mansion level across the country, as we have the plague of privatization taking over our local governments. We will also be talking with Dr. Sanjeev Sriram, who is debuting a new show shortly on WEAC Radio Network entitled Dr. America. He is a physician, he is a progressive, he is a person with very interesting ideas. We look forward to that conversation very much. And we will be talking, among other things, about public health and plagues. And while we're talking about plagues, it seems to me we should be asking ourselves, why are people so agitated about Ebola? I don't mean why are people concerned? It's pretty clear why people are concerned. The lives of other human beings are precious things, and we hate to see them lost. But that's not what this feels like it's about. And I think we can all agree on that. Sure, it's a terrible disease, but so far it's proven extraordinarily difficult to catch unless you have a direct contact with the sick person and wind up touching their bodily fluids, which is something that's very, very unlikely. That could change, but as of now, it is one of the more minor health problems facing the country right now. Clearly, we should do everything we can, but why can't people stop talking about it? Well, think about it. Ebola kind of fits into a narrative for some people around here, doesn't it? I mean, think about it. It's a threat from Africa. That just fits great for people who think we have a president from Africa and who maybe aren't so crazy about people of African origin anyway. But look, a lot of decent people are afraid of Ebola too. Why are they afraid of it? Because our media keeps focusing on it. You know what they're not focusing on at all? Anywhere from 3 or 4,000 Americans a year up to as many as 52,000 die of flu-related symptoms each and every year. So if you're afraid of a dreadful viral death, either dying that way yourself or passing that disease on to someone else, why don't you get a flu shot instead of watching that news report on Ebola? This is something we'll talk about with Dr. America, Dr. Sriram, but it's something we would encourage right now. Get a flu shot. And by the way, speaking of shot, there were 11,419 gun deaths last year in the United States. Talk about an epidemic. Can you imagine what we would be saying if there were 11,000 Ebola deaths? Can you imagine what we'd be doing? And yet 11,000 gun deaths and we do nothing. And don't try to tell me, as many of the gun advocates will, that many of those deaths were suicides. Look, suicide, just like Ebola death, is the result of disease. In this case, a disease called depression or a disease called addiction. Depression and addiction and other mental illnesses can be treated, but not if the sick person has a gun and uses it on themselves first. And don't try telling me that more guns make us safer, okay? We already have more guns per capita than any other nation on earth. We also have the highest gun homicide rate of any developed nation, 32 times that of Great Britain's. So you telling me that guns make us safe? Wake me up when we're safe enough. It's a bitter irony, isn't it? That horrible tragedy we call 9/11 was a searing event. And unlike most people who talk about it, I knew people who died that day. I had friends who died that day. I worked in that area. But it's interesting how politicized our thinking has become, especially on the right. Think about it. 3,000 people die once from terrorism, and these people are willing to sacrifice our basic freedoms. 50,000 people die from the flu, and they won't even cover their mouths when they cough. I'm RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.